Hello, one and all, and welcome to the final Huddersfield Town Social of the 2020-2021 season, in which none of us have been to a football ground except Cameron Pope. So he's going to do all the talking this evening, but in reality, we're here to talk about the season as it was. We won't talk about Reading because none of us watched the game or the highlights. We are terrible football fans. We were all watching Rotherham nearly stay up, should I say, as a Derby Chef Wednesday played out a thrilling 3-3 draw. Town drew to all, but who gives a shit about that? It's what a shit season it's been to be a Town fan, so we're going to dissect it because that's what we do. Joining me, Greg Marah, Cameron Pope, Kaye, Ian Kilroy, Sean O'Toole, and the soon-to-be nude Nicholas Barlow, which I'm certainly looking forward to. I won't be looking, I just want to see everyone else's reaction to it. Gentlemen, it has been a depressing season. Certainly not 9 out of 10, which some people like to believe it is. But overall, the one word that just comes to my mind is just underwhelming. Absolutely underwhelming.
Well, I mean, the last few weekends have just been scintillating drama, stellar performances, key players, end-to-end entertainment. And if it hadn't been for Line of Duty bringing us that, I don't know what I'd have done. Because I tell you what, that's been the most difficult watching I have had over a 46-game season. I tell you what, if I was coming into football now as a young fan, I think I'd pick rugby league. Honestly, it's been so difficult. And no one needs reminding of how much we've struggled. And I tell you what, we mentioned Rotherham and Derby and Chef Wednesday at the start of this programme. Well, at least those battling against relegation actually gave the fans something to get excited about. How much of a damp squib was our running? Even Wickham gave more of a fight there than we did. And they actually got quite close. They were miles back. So, I mean, to be honest, lads, I think I'm so happy that the end of the season has finally come. And yeah, we can look forward now with trepidation more than anticipation for the new season. It does bring me some excitement. I think that we might be back in the ground. My fear is when the novelty wears off. But to look back at it, I guess we have to be pragmatic and say, right, the result was we stayed up. Don't know how. Don't know if we deserve to either, but that's the way it goes. And then so in a sense, to be technical, you have to say the season's been a success, a very boring success at that. But considering where we were at one point, I think I'm just grateful we have a football team in the second division.
Yeah, I think that second half of the season, Cam, I had less pain when I passed the kidney stone. The first half of the season was all right, 9 out of 10 according to some people. Not that I'm sure I'd subscribe to that theory, but the first half was okay. The highlight for me, on the left-hand side, we looked really strong. Karoma, Lewis O'Brien, Toff, all those linking up was great. We beat Watford and Barnsley back to back. Those were two decent performances. But then after Christmas, the Plymouth game set the tone for me, and from there on in, we were pretty piss poor, really. 3 wins or whatever it was that we got between January and the end of the season. We were just saying before we start recording, I think we were lucky that Wickham didn't have another 2 games. I think if we'd have had another 2 weeks of the season, we could have been in trouble as in Derby. We witnessed fast flowing chaos football for 15 games, but then the last 15 games we witnessed Cowley-esque football. I know that we were hit by injuries, and I think we talked about that before. Carlos had a bit of bad luck, but it's proper drained my enthusiasm, for a club that I've followed religiously for the last, 30 odd years and gone home and away. I think being out of the ground, and we've talked about that before, has been part of that, but it's really drained my enthusiasm. I'm just hoping that come August, the sun will be shining, we'll be allowed back in the ground, my enthusiasm will be refreshed from a break. I'll try not to think about the fact that we're currently second favourites for relegation already. Unless we do something really dramatic, we'll be back here talking in possibly the same way next year. But yeah, I guess I'm with you, Cam. We've stopped up. Other than that, I'm struggling to think of any positive from the season at all.
Well, I'll try to be positive, guys. We'll get positives out of the way. So they've made a fool out of me for a start. They've proved me wrong. We've stayed up. I don't know how. I think it's more the fact that other teams were terrible rather than us actually being brilliant. And I agree, guys. I think another few weeks, and I think we probably would have gone down, to be quite honest. But we've stayed up in a season like no other, really difficult season in terms of finance and instability. So from that point of view, I guess it has been a success. If I had to rate it, I think first half of the season, we played some decent football at times, got some really good team goals without really tearing it up. I said a 7 out of 10, unlike someone that give it a 9. But I mean, what I can't give any more than a 2. Second half of the season, it's probably been generous at that. I mean, it was god awful, and it's been depressing. It's been boring, and this is now the third season on the trot where it's been desperately bad to watch for the majority of the season. And I've talked about our expected goals in quite a few of these episodes, which I know bores a lot of people, but we're very lucky if we have 1 expected goal per game. So it's dull to watch. We're losing more often than not. Something's got to change. The real depressing thing for me is I look to next season and I just can't see it being any different. And I know we're going to get on to that, lads, later on, but I just can't see anything changing. Because we seem to go from one idea and then, as Gas said, we start playing this attractive football. Teams quickly find us out. Yeah, we have been unlucky with some injuries. But do you know what? Like, when these players have come back, we haven't looked much better this year. I mean, look at Blackburn. Awful. Absolutely god-awful. So, look, if I had to rate this season, I'd be generous and give it a 5 because we've stayed up. I think in terms of the hierarchy, we've done what we needed to do. It's been a bit of a meh season. We've got over the line, but we've got to be better next season for all our sanity and to actually encourage people to get back in the ground. Because anyone that's seen the football this year, you can forget season ticket sales. Apart from us fans that go through thick and thin, it's desperately bad. Desperately bad.
Who did a 9 out of 10 anyway? Who's a 9 out of 10er? Is this just some random ghost follower on Twitter or something that none of us know? Or is it someone within this Zoom chat?
I'm guilty of that, OT. Man.
Killer, is it you?
That's on me, but I'll get to that in a second.
All right, go on then.
By it. No, you're right. You crack on and I'll tell you why you're all wrong afterwards.
Well, I'd give it a generous 6 out of 10, and that's going on just the start of the season. I think that Carlos he came in with a bit of magic and showed what he could do, and then obviously after Christmas it all went downhill. Whether he didn't get a nice Christmas present from Hill Hodgkinson or whatever went on, just things kind of dropped off. But for me, you look at pundits across the game, you look at fans, you look at sort of write-ups, and we've all seen it that Carlos needs a little bit more. I think that he needs another season, and let's see then what he's got, because we've seen it in glimpses there, but then that was when Toffolo and Pippa were on full form. That's when Fraser Campbell and Karoma were working really nicely together. That's when, things seem to look right. And then we have been unlucky with injuries, and that's really knocked the season off course completely, because then it just became a game of survival. It went from free-flowing, let's have creative expression, to shit, we're falling down the league, and we've got a very weak and thin squad. So I think that it started off really well, and I were excited with what I was watching. So with that and survival, giving it a 6.
I am sticking with a 9 out of 10 for the beginning of the season, and the proof is in how shite we've been since then, right? So one thing I struggle to agree with is certain other podcasters suggest that our team should be doing better than what we're doing, and they talk about how good our players are and that Carlos isn't getting enough out of us. And I disagree entirely, because I don't think the players are good enough. I think we've needed a great reset since we got relegated due to how many shit signings we made in the Premier League, and we're still suffering from that hangover. And somehow before Christmas, Carlos got it going, and we were scoring for fun. We looked good. We caused loads of every team we played, we caused problems. The problem was, once we were figured out, once scouts and analysis spent 20 hours a week looking at how to break us down, eventually they worked out how to do it. And since then, we've been shit. Carlos totally lost his plan A, went to his plan B, plan C, plan D. And by the end of it, it looked to me like he lost his mind. Honestly, some of the systems we were playing in the last few games of the season were fucking embarrassing. And to be honest, it got to a point in certain games, with the Blackburn game, where you just thought he's gone. He's got to actually be sacked on the back of one performance, because tactically, it was so wrong. And I've not seen that before from Carlos until that point. That lost all faith that I had in him. For the season, I'd still stick with a 9 out of 10 for the first half. And then you're looking at like a 0 out of 10 for the rest of it, because it was pure relegation form. Every team outperforms, I think, since Christmas, because Wickham nearly caught us up. Everyone else has nearly caught us up. So I'm guessing we're the worst performing team since Christmas in the division. And not many managers managed to escape that, especially when you consider that we have failed. It's not been a success, boys, on anyone's measure, not even on propaganda Phil, right? Because he said at the beginning of the season, Carlos is coming in, and after 10 games, the aim is not to be looking back at the threat of relegation. That's what the club's aim was for the year. That is a fact. That's what was said. Then all of a sudden, Carlos starts talking about, oh, we got this target of 50 points. Well, 50 points was never not going to be looking behind at relegation, was it? That's not enough points to keep you safe, guaranteed. So something changed halfway through the season because they realised how shit it was. And again, I do think the players are not good enough. And going through the season, which has been 2 seasons back to back, hasn't it? There was next to no off season. We're all burnt out watching it. That's why we can't be asked watching. The players are obviously mentally burnt out. You can see that on the field. They thought they were safe. They thought they were done. And it is difficult to overcome that psychological part of it when you think you're safe, when you think you've finished, when you think you're in Dubai and taking it off. Unfortunately, everyone else nearly caught us up, and it touch and go for a little bit for the last few weeks. But look, the team for me isn't good enough. The player to player, the players that we have aren't good enough, and we'll talk about going forward how a smaller budget might make that even more difficult. But we just needed really to get here. The second part of the season is such a worry for me and for Town going forward that you can't ignore it. But like you said, reset this summer. There's going to be a huge turnover, and it's going to be a forced huge turnover of players because players are out of contract. So it's not people now saying, "Oh, I'm not selling them because I'm not losing the money we put into them," like with Mbenza and Diakabi, who realistically both should have gone last summer or the summer before, but we weren't willing to take the cut in cost to be able to do that. So I'm just happy the season's over, like you guys. It was just fucking, how bad was it? Like, the best part of the season for me was watching the Sheffield Wednesday derby game this weekend because it was enjoyable again. It felt like we were all born again. Maybe that's what happens if you turn back into religion after losing it, and you get so excited at finding something new and exciting. Because watching that championship game, which was not necessarily good in defence, but just all attacking, fun, things were happening. We've not had that for a full season, and I'm just hoping over the summer we can get something like that back.
So overall, you're back down to a 4.5. Is that what you're saying?
I'd say 5. I'll pump it up a little bit. We got Karoma back at the end of the season, and that was pretty nice. So I'll stick to 5, Greg.
All right. I don't know what you were drinking at the start of the season. Some of that fruity wine or fruity beer that your wife had been buying you, I think.
I was all in on the Kool-Aid, man. I was all in on it because it was just so exciting. We've not had fullbacks like we had back then, though. We were just attacking and going for it. And teams were flustered by the way we were going forward. And I've not seen Town of that for years. So really, I enjoyed it. Do you know what? I'll give extra points if it's attacking football. I am in that. I've got that mantra. But then I'm still sticking for it, Greg. I'm not
flash in the pan, though?
I'm no revisionist. I'll stick to it and I'll defend it forever and ever and ever.
Okay, Tony Blair. Going on from that, and Ian, actually, you make a very good point because we've been calling for better fullback or better backup fullbacks all season. Jaden Brown and Dehaney were never a patch on Toffolo or Pieper, and they were our key kind of attackers for most of the season, with Mbenza and Karoma at the best of our times playing as inside forwards and being creative, and that's when we actually played quite well. And the retain list came out the other day, and no surprise there to see that Dehaney and Jaden Brown were among the released list. No surprises particularly in that retain list. I'll get on to Christopher Schindler later. I'm still struggling to come to terms with it personally, but getting the likes of Elphick and Pritchard off the books, who were on a significant wedge of cash, and Bakuna and Benza's had a year option taken on, but let's be honest, we're doing that so we can get some monies back that we obviously spent on them. Is that enough of a template to create a squad for next season? Because you look at the squad that they've got left left over basically, and you're looking at 11, 12 new signings to become a competitive team for next season. Otherwise, we are going to be, scratching around trying to find three worst teams again, begging that everyone gets done 15 points for fiddling their expenses like Derby County.
Well, I look at it and I think we're in a very similar position to what we were last season. We essentially need a whole new team. You need exactly at least a dozen players, and the ones going out. Okay, there's very few surprises in there. I made some notes ahead of the Coventry game, and I put question marks next to Jaden Brown. I wondered, the jury was still out. I thought, okay, he's probably going to be a squad player, but until we get some bodies in, I imagined he might have stayed. It looked like he was first out of the door looking at his Twitter post. Other than that, I think we've kept the right ones. Bayeko was the one I was really watching out for. That's the one I thought I don't want to slip through the net. I'm glad he stayed. You might be right about Mbenza, and we're going to get something back from the investment on him. And to be honest, though, I'd be happy if he stayed, just for the fact that we've now got an actual established set-piece taker, and he looks to be playing the best form we've seen him in under Carlos. Bacuna, thing is, he's 50% of a good player, isn't he? And maybe it's better the devil you know. If you get 25 good games out of him, then it could be worth keeping. But yeah, that's ignoring the big problem, which is, okay, yeah, this is the bare bones once again, and we failed last year until the last 2 months of the season, was it, when Nias came out of quarantine and straight into the injury room? It was, we didn't have enough senior players. So in answer to your question, yeah, I think this is an okay backbone, but it really needs some muscle on it now to be competitive here. Otherwise, we're just going to be filling in the gaps. Again, I was maybe surprised that perhaps Nias or Sanogo, one of them, didn't stay. And obviously when Nias got the injury, of course, it wasn't going to be him. Sanogo, we've probably seen, if you take him off penalties, you've probably seen enough to him to think, okay. But now I worry, because we're back in the position again where it took us so long to find a striker. Now we need to find at least two. And of course, the name Rhodes has been thrown around for weeks and months and refuses to go away. But yeah, it's a starting point, but there's a long way to go. And how many transfer windows in succession now have we been saying this is a massive market for Town? This is a massive window for Town. And how many out of those last 6 windows have we actually fulfilled expectations?
Well, we haven't, have we?
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, the biggest, obviously, we're talking about the players retaining list, but it looks like the entire football management and football operations teams are being retained. The Spanish boy band were on Huddersfield Town's YouTube channel, all high-fiving each other, giving Carlos a reach around about how great they've been this year. Now they've reached their objectives, and our pass percentage was third highest in the league, and all that's lovely, great. So I think we've got to accept, whatever your views on Carlos are, he's stopping. We missed an opportunity at the beginning of last season because Phil took the decision. It was cheaper to get rid of the Cowleys than it was to get rid of Diakabi and Mbenza and Pritchard and the other people who were weighing us down. He thought that, maybe Carlos told him he could, but he could get a tune out of these players. And with an exception of probably half a season out of Mbenza, he's not managed to do that with any of them. I don't think Bakuma's played any better this year than any other time I've seen him. Flash of brilliance, but the rest is piss poor for me. The squad that's left, I think there's 10 players who you could class as players who've played regularly in the first team. The rest are young lads we've been told have got a load of potential. I think there's been a bit of ire about the Keogh possible extension. I don't think that's a bad one, as long as we bring in another centre-back who isn't 37. We need to bring in now a good quality centre-back to play alongside either Keogh or Sarr and not rely on them two playing together. Desperate for fullback backup, desperate for a keeper. Schofield's just not ready. I mean, he made 2 massive mistakes in the last 2 games, which cost us goals. I think centre midfield is possibly the area where, when you look at our kids, we've got a little bit of potential. Possibly there's enough in there to manage, but we're going to be wingers short, and we are 2 strikers short. But I think we'll only bring 1 in Cam. Now Campbell signed an extension. I think it's going to be 1 striker plus Campbell plus Ward. And what I really would like to see is the club bring in some quality loans. Let's do like the other teams in the bottom half of the Championship did really well this year, and go and get in 1 or 2 quality Premier League loans, and stop talking about it being a blocker to pathways for kids who now, in the next breath, we're releasing Jaden Brown and D'Amico Dehaney. We didn't bring in fullbacks on loan because they were good enough. Well, clearly they're not. So I think the club needs a good shake. We're stuck with Carlos and the crew. So now's the time, now's Phil's time really to back him, because if he doesn't, we'll be back here next year, won't we?
We need pace at the back. We need someone with a bit of strength, bit of pace. Unfortunately, they cost money, but that's what's needed in this style. We need someone that can actually pass the ball out from defence rather than just pass it straight to attacker to score a tap-in. Thinking about it, I could probably count on one hand the number of players that the squad we've got now, as it is, that are real decent Championship players, and that is a big concern. We do say it all, it's every single summer that this is a massive window, but it really is, because it's just such a big operation. We're talking really 8, 9, 10 players, and not just squad fillers, first team ready players, really, just to bulk out the squad so that when we do get injuries again, and we will, if we're going to stick with this philosophy and this kind of training regime, we are going to get more injuries. So we need to bulk the squad out. I think Campbell, he offers experience. He works hard. Shouldn't be starting him. Doesn't score enough for me. Danny Ward, again, experienced. Decent coming off the bench as sort of Cardiff, but again, not really a starter for me. I would rather us get, if we've got 2 experienced strikers, senior strikers, I'd rather us bring in a younger striker with chance to develop, like the Phillips that we've got, but maybe another option, a younger option who we can develop. Jordan Rhodes, for me, what's the point? We've got 2 senior strikers that probably score us 5 goals a season. We don't need another. Like, I don't know what he's gonna. I don't see what he's gonna bring that the others don't, other than an extra body. And he probably will be a bit cheaper. He'll probably move back closer to home. He'll certainly be on less than what he is at Wednesday. But it's such a big job. And do we trust the recruitment team to get the right players in? Oh, the jury's out on that one. But if we're going to stick with Carlos, we have to get players that can play to his style. And that means a bit of pace and an eye for a pass and more cutting edge. We desperately need more cutting edge up front because, as I've said before, our goals, our chances created and expected goals per game are laughable. Schofield in goal, again, he's got good potential. He's a decent shot stopper, but you're right, Gaz. I always call him Dracula because he's terrified of crosses. You get a cross in, and he just panics. I've never seen out like it. He don't know. He's like he don't know what to do. He don't know where to come out, get it, punch it. He ends up just watching it, and then we look at. I know we're talking about Reading, but you look at Reading's second goal, easy ball into the box. Nobody's marking him, and it's a nice easy free header of it, keeper straight into back at net. So there's problems at both ends of the pitch. It's not a simple solution of just get a couple of players in. It's just an attacking problem where we're not scoring enough goals, or it's just a defensive problem where we're leaking too many goals. When it's both ends of the pitch, it's a major problem, and it's tough. It's going to be really tough, and I don't envy the recruitment team at all because there's no hiding place now. We're pretty much through COVID. Things are picking up again. The market's picking up again. I think we do need to get loans in. Most of the big earners are out now, so we can't really be the excuse that we've got loads of big earners, bleeding us dry financially. We must have some finances freed up, so there really is no hiding place now, and I just hope they manage to get it right for us.
I think as a club that we're doing a disjustice to Schofield. I think that we're letting him down and we're failing him. Do you know what I mean? We're not developing him. You think back when Alex Smithies broke through. I remember watching him early on. He were getting thrown in and he were dropping balls and making some right mistakes and they pulled him away. They protected him from the media. And they did it right with Alex Smithies. And look at the career he's gone on to have now. I don't think Schofield is at the level of Alex Smithies, but I think that we're letting him down. I think it's a case of our pockets aren't deep enough. We're not prepared to spend and we're relying on the youth. But really, we're letting the youth down in the way that we're doing it. He needs to be looked after as that lad. He might end up being a seasoned League One pro, but if that's the case, let him get there in the organic way, in the professional way. Do you know what I mean? Because he's obviously is flapping. The nerves are getting the best of him. He's a boy amongst men currently. But soon his confidence is going to shrink if we keep throwing him out there, and it's unfair, really. For me, strikers, Jordan Rhodes, I agree. I think that it's another risky one. We seem to always opt for the dressing gown and Horlicks, moving towards retirement players. Do you know what I mean? It's like Richard Keogh's come in. I like him, to be fair, but like I say, he's not someone you want to be in, week out, and holding the back line. Neither Sarr. Sarr is just like Sodje back in the day. I've said that. Sarr is the new Sodje. He can be brilliant or he can be awful. Need a new goalkeeper. I think if you look at the past, like the Cowleys, to be fair, I think they did okay with a few of their loan. They were quite clever, with getting Lossell back and Emile Smith-Rowe. Danny Simpson did a job, to be fair. I think the Cowleys, we look back and we say we hadn't had a good, transfer window for ages. I were quietly happy with what the Cowleys did. And they were clever with how they did it in terms of the free transfer market. Strikers that are out there at the minute, we've got Troy Deeney, Andrew Ayew, Martin Waghorn, Glenn Murray, Loa, and Jordan Rhodes. And there's a few others knocking about, midfielders as well. Alex Mowat, Barry Bannon. We said, Gaz, didn't we? I think it'd be a good player to bring in. Young, nippy, sort of light-footed player, similar to Lewis O'Brien. There's people out there, do you know what I mean? But I just think that as a football club, we aren't attractive. Do you know what I mean? If someone's got the choice of living in Headingley and playing for Harrogate, or living in Elland and playing for Huddersfield, I think at the minute they'd rather play for Harrogate. And I think that comes down to a town being attractive. But as a football club, we need to do better. We need to do better with his recruitment. I did a poll for the fanzine last week in terms of what people would want from the new season. New manager came in at 5%. There were 355 votes. New manager came in at 5%. New chairman came in at 17%. Better recruitment team came in at 63%. Better investment, 5%, I think it was, if that adds up. So obviously it's aiming towards the recruitment team is what them 355 people were saying. So yeah, we need to get rid of a lot of dead wood and just try and bring in, like I said, just ready players, championship ready players. Is it wishful thinking? I don't know.
I think
sorry guys, I've just had a quick look at the retain list that we've got and the players that we've got signed on for next year, because I'm talking about here I have a big turnover of players, and I've just counted, right, and I've shat myself a little bit, boys, because we've got 25 guys under contract next year that the team consider first team players, right? Now, how many players are we going to go forward into the season with? We won't be that many more than 25, right? So we're getting pretty close. If the Rhodes deal is done, which if you're looking at the respectable posters on Down at the Mark and on Twitter, it seems like it already is signed and sealed that Rhodes is joining. And now obviously that has to be confirmed. We know we need a Schindler replacement. We need to see. But then we did go a little bit heavy in January, bringing in Kaye as backup. Maybe that's the Schindler replacement that the club reckons. We definitely need an Eiting replacement if he's not coming back on loan, right? I think we're pretty slim at fullbacks now. Jaden Brown has gone and Dehaney. And then you look at wingers. We don't really have too many wingers, do we? We've been persisting in playing Holmes out there. And just quickly on Bakuna, by the way, Gaz, his best spell was under the Cowleys when he had that little, him and Diakabi had about 5 or 6 games in a row where they were unplayable. He kept coming on as a sub and scoring goals for fun. He was fantastic. That's the best Bakuna we've seen. It only happened for a few games, but that was the best we had. I do think Mbenza and Bakuna are signed to be sold on for a little bit of money this year. I can't see them staying because their wages won't be low. We know the parachute payments now have come to an end. We've still got a bit of money coming in, so I imagine from the Congolo deal, that'll be spread over the contract that he signed with Fulham. So there's a little bit extra money coming in than what we'll have when parachute payments stop and all the players we had in the Premier League have left and all those transfers have been finished. But we're going to be going light this year. We understand that. So we've already got 25 signed on. I've just named 4 replacements there, and we definitely need a goalkeeper replacement because the decision to get rid of Hamer to go with Schofield nearly got us relegated. That got so close to getting us relegated. And we all spoke about this on the day it happened. You're throwing out Schofield, who just isn't ready yet. He's too, I think people are referring to him as being too small and too skinny, and he does look like that. And maybe you can beef him out a little bit so he can dictate himself. He can play a little bit more at crosses and come out and grab him. But I don't know if that's a part of his game. The club absolutely celebrating that he's made the most saves in the 6-yard box is fucking embarrassing. It's not up to him, right, to stop people making shots in the 6-yard box. That's on the defence. Or he's not coming out for the crosses, and when the crosses are coming in, it's bouncing off and going towards goal. It's the worst stat you can have. He's had to make the most saves in 6. We've already conceded the most amount of goals in the league, and now we're celebrating that he's made the most saves in the 6-yard box. How many goals could we have conceded then? Fucking 80, 85? It's just, we've got so much that needs changing. It needs a full culture change, doesn't it? You can see when we start losing, again, the demons set in and everyone just fucking drops out their ass. They look terrified when we go behind. And now having a quick count of players there at 25, we need a fullback cover, goalkeeper cover. If Rhodes is done, we won't be able to bring in any more strikers in. It'll be Rhodes, Ward and Campbell we're going with next season. There's not much pace there, is there?
Is Tommy Elphick gone now?
Elphick's gone, yeah.
He's gone, yeah. I thought they might have put him with Brookie, with Kitman or something.
We've got about 10 guys carrying kit bags around, I think, at the moment, John. I think we've got a man for each corner flag with the amount of injury guys we've got. It's just, but there's got 25 guys. We need 3 or 4 definite replacements. That's up to 29. So how many more are we going to actually bring in? And the Cowleys did great in that low market, OT. You did right. They did, but then they're bringing in players like Lossell that is not cheap. They're bringing Simpson in, not cheap at all. Smith Rowe won't have been cheap for Arsenal to actually send him to us. So there's 3 signings there. We paid quite a bit of money for, even though it wasn't a transfer fee per se. I don't think we're going to do that again. So we're all praying and hoping that we're going to have a brand new team from top to bottom. But if the club are considering those 25 guys and still want to promote the youth from within, I actually thought, quickly as an aside, Scott High was really, really good against Reading in the final game. I thought for the first half, he was the best player on the field. So maybe we do have something there. And he was an attacking midfielder. He played an attacking midfielder role, and he created quite a lot. Obviously, it's a dead rubber, and there's nothing on that game, so it's easy to dictate play and do that type of stuff. But he was quite impressive. So maybe he's an option that we didn't have this year for next season. But if the club think we're only going to bring 4 players in, then I think we're going to need a little bit more than that. And you can see why the bookies are put us at 5-2 for us to get relegated now, which is only 3 days after the season's finished. Is quite crazy. But you understand it. You understand it looking at our form since Christmas and how much money we have going forward and how many things actually needs to change. And if Rhodes is going to be the answer, I don't think the question's one we want to really consider just yet, is it?
Well, just to jump on that, did anyone remember, this is going back to about April time, what was that ruling about, or the guidance about EFL squad limits for next season? Wasn't there talk of making it 25-man squads for championship clubs? I'm going off the top of my head here. I imagine these maybe don't include under 21 players, things like that, but I'm sure there was a kick-off from the PFA because the EFL wanted to limit squad sizes to 25 in the Championship and 20 in League One and League Two, and the PFA wanted 25 throughout. Did anything come of that? Does anyone remember that? Because obviously, I mean, it's hard off reckoning. I imagine youth players don't, and given that half our team seem to be good enough when they're 18, I guess it doesn't really apply to us. But it's worth looking into because you're quite right. 25 is a big number to start on, and we say we're going to bring in a dozen. Well, you're not going to have a squad of 37 players, are you? Maybe a couple more might be shifted on in that time, but we've never had a squad into the 30s. That's the danger. And actually, a really good point made by Nick as well. I thought we're not a very attractive prospect, and that was why Canal Side was so important, because you need these facilities to try and boast the players. We're from rainy Huddersfield, you know what I mean? Especially if you're going into the foreign market, which was so good for us last time when we came up from this division. That's why the players look peeper and stuff. That's why you see photos of them out and about in Leeds. You need to sell it, and we're not a big selling point at the moment, really, are we? And those bookies figures are pretty damning. But yeah, I mean, looking at players to go forward, yeah, I agree with the Schofield projection, and I don't think there was enough outrage made about Hamer being allowed to leave. I remember being up in arms myself, and a lot of the reaction I seemed to pick up was, oh, well, we're saving a bit of cash. Well, yes, but how much cash will we save when we can see the most goals in the division when we go down? Well, we did one of those things. And so, yeah, absolutely. And now Leutwiler's joined the club along with Rob Green and Simon Thomas, and never having kept goal for us. And Joel Pereira has gone back, having conceded about 25 goals in 60 minutes. So, we're back at square one, and we've got nothing to show for it. And so, yeah, whether or not the Rhodes deal actually is genuine and comes off. It's the least of our issues. It's the first thing everyone wants is a striker, but it's the least of our issues. Fullback cover, I think, is most important because you're quite right. We said that Dehaney has gone, and I don't think he was able to cut it at this level. I wish him the best, but we just never saw enough to think that he could sit in for Pieper and Toffolo. So we absolutely need to invest in those areas. Defenders, like we've said too, goalkeeper. I wanted to have a look at that Luke Jeffcott that played against us for Plymouth in the FA Cup. He signed a long-term contract, which was quite a smart move by Plymouth, wasn't it? Obviously, but then again, you look at these players, and if they're wanting to step up, because obviously Plymouth are not coming up with the likes of Hull and Peterborough, why is he going to come to the second most likely team to go down out of the division? So again, we're in a really sticky situation. And so no, don't have a right lot of confidence in this at the moment. I don't really see this going in the right direction, and I'm trying to now, off the top of my head, think of the lowest number of players we could bring in to make a real fist of it. And if we brought in half a dozen net, say, in the squad size of 31, I still don't think that's enough. So I don't see how now we can get enthused about this new season, given that before the transfer window we were at such short odds to go down.
Can we focus on that 25? Because you are including players like Ben Jackson, who couldn't get a game at Bolton Wanderers. You're talking Jacob Chapman, who's was fourth choice goalkeeper. You're talking Danny Grant. Well, he's been injured all season, hasn't he? You know, Reece Brown, we haven't seen him kick a ball for Huddersfield Town for 2 years. He's probably leaving. You know, a lot of those players, really, Kieran Phillips, they should be going out on loan. They're the ones for a season or two's time. They should be ignored. If Huddersfield Town are going to go say, oh, we've got all these young players, we don't need to. It's the same fucking shite as last season. We'll finish bottom three. And, you know, that's the fault of Phil Hodgkinson, Mark Devlin and Lee Bromby, who, Three Musketeers, but I don't know what the version of Three Musketeers who are extremely shit at their jobs, you know. I don't care anymore. If they're not going to invest, I'm not going to buy a season ticket. It's as simple as that. I've not bought one yet. If they're not going to invest in the squad, I'm not going to buy a season ticket. And there are plenty of other people who've been through it, through watching Town with Wadsworth and that, who are thinking the same thing. We can talk about, this player. I want to see some investment. Sick of it. All this bullshit on Twitter, you know, with their monthly updates, all the COVID planning, etc. I'm sorry. It's a load of bollocks. Invest in the squad. If you don't invest in the squad, you're not getting my money.
There's two things there, Greg. One is we may have spaces in the squad because there's nothing to say we won't be selling anybody. Lewis O'Brien is being sniffed at. You know, it's not beyond the realms of possibility. Toffolo and people could get picked off by top championship clubs. So that's going to leave room. That's one thing. The other thing, I'm with you. I've just had a quick read on Google, and the 25-man limit looks like it's coming, but it wasn't clear from the article I've just looked at whether that included under 21s or under 23s, or if you haven't had a game, do you count, don't you count? So I don't think it's as straightforward as all of that, Greg. They might use it as a smokescreen, as you say. But what worries me more is if we are going to be limited on first choice players, we're rushing out and signing fucking Dwayne Holmes in a panic. You know, I think if that genuinely is the case, investment in people that we consider to be first team ready footballers needs to be of a better quality than the mates are Broms, they're cheap and they want to come. You know, I think it needs a bit more behind it than that.
I think Lewis O'Brien will be looking to keep on to him, you know, because if you look at, he has been consistent, like, you know, best pick of a bad bunch, but even if we had a good squad, he would still stand out. And if you look at them coming down, Sheffield United, he could fit in there and do a job and he wouldn't look out of place. You look at West Brom, he could go in there. Do you know what I mean? I don't want him to go. He's our best academy product since, I don't know, probably Steady or whoever, I don't know. But we really need to try and keep him, but it isn't beyond the possibilities that he'll go, you know, and he'll be a massive miss for us.
Yeah, but we need the money, OT. I'd sooner him go now, right? As soon as we can, so we can reinvest the money. Do you know what I mean? Like, the worry is that we wait until fucking last day of the transfer window, sell him, don't get a fax in on time. Who uses faxes anyway? Don't get the paperwork done in fucking time. And then we talk about, we were so close to signing him, but it just someone had a meeting and we didn't get the paperwork in time, and then he got injured in a game. How many times do we do stuff like that? So if O'Brien goes, go now. Let's be proactive. get him offloaded as soon as we can, and then we can try and reinvest a little bit more on every player that we need to come in. That's the thing. But problem is, lads, we're saying we need a keeper first and foremost. We've got a transfer committee that thought Pereira was going to be able to offer something this year, and then Luke Weiler going to offer something this year, and we've ended up playing a lad that should be in the youth team. And that's what our transfer committee has done twice in 1 year. The only keeper we've brought in that was any good recently was not Hamer, because how bad was he when he first started? He was awful. Lossel's the only one. And that was when Wagner's here and we're signing all these German players and everyone's pretending it's nothing to do with the German connection of Wagner and his backroom staff, and it's all on the transfer committee. As soon as it went away from signing German players, we've been dog shit for 4 years, 3 years. And these guys are now having to recruit another goalkeeper after, and their track record is beyond embarrassing when it comes to doing that.
Do we have a scouting team like your traditional scouts that go out? Do we have that? Or do we have just a team of analysts that sit there drinking Costa coffee in Canal Side or wherever they are, just looking at videos of players that we could sign? Because that's the rumour that I heard from Mill, is that we don't have scouts that actually go out there anymore. And I'm pretty old school in that sense, that you need to be out in the communities. Do you know what I mean? Like if you're at a game, at a trial, at a youth setup or at someone else's academy, you can speak to them after that season of events or whatever's going on. You know, you're too far disattached. If that's the case, if we just have a team of analysis, then we're going to be a rabbit in rat race all the time, aren't we?
Well, we're trying to do the Brentford model, aren't we?
When we shut the academy, they said, we shut it because there's more Manchester United scouts in Huddersfield than there are Huddersfield scouts in Huddersfield. I mean, like, I hope that's because they're all out in Nuremberg, you know, scouting for the third Bundesliga's next big thing. But that's a really good point that you raise. Exactly where are we tapping into this talent? You remember when we brought in of Billing and poached him into the academy, things like that. And okay, yeah, ended a bit sourly, but he was a success. And so yeah, I don't see that if we're bringing in, if the fact is we're going to focus on youth and we're going to bring these lads through, then where are they really coming from? Like we've got a few. Okay, you look at, everyone enjoys seeing the highlights of Brima Diarra, don't they? But so in a sense, you could say that it was working. He's French, isn't he? But again, I'm with you on that one. I don't really see where this injection is coming from, and if you're going to go down the analyst route, then you've got to be getting it right. And I think we're firing more arrows that miss than hit at the moment.
We've been linked with this Brazilian, haven't we? And for me, I can't imagine we've got many scouts down there over in Brazil. I can't imagine we've got many next. So where's that come from?
He must have responded to the advert we put out looking for players. We did put that out, didn't we? Oh yeah, do you want to come play for us? Can you send us your videos because we can't come look for you? That's basically what it's gone down to.
Their version of
we're inviting kids to come and trial for us if you want. Honestly, it's just
definitely a joke in there about Phil wanting a Brazilian, isn't there? Somehow.
All I'm thinking is a Brazilian Ali Dyer now. Comes on for 3 minutes, realises shit, and I have to take him off.
It's just so bad. We talk about doing the Brentford model. Devlin bums Brentford. We know that. Everyone, Brentford this, oh, Brentford that, look at the stadium, oh, look at this, it's amazing. Yeah, but their network of transfers, and player analysis across Europe is massive. Is it huge? We've got nothing apart from an advert. Honestly, I reckon we'll be putting them in newspapers before long. You want to play football? Subs are £6 a week, and you've got to train twice if you're not working. It's just, it doesn't seem like the scouting network is what it should be for a club our size, does it? It doesn't seem that way, and we don't hear much of it. So it leads you to think that there's next to nothing there, or there isn't as much as you should have when you've been relegated from the Premier League a couple of years ago. Just hopefully people have sent some good CVs in, and we can get them playing, and we can go forward well next year.
I'd much respect Phil Hodgkinson and the team and the board if they could just come forward and kind of say, actually, you know what, we got it wrong. You know, we haven't got the mechanisms to be able to deliver what we've said. We're going to try this route. You know, just give us something new, because this whole building the youth, I just can't see it working. I don't think we're professional enough. I don't think, you know, I just can't see it working. But anyway, I always like to be proven wrong.
Difference between us and Brentford is Brentford spends some brass. You know, you look at it, everyone's like, oh, Brentford are main spec. But when they sell the players for big money, like you look at Ivan Toney they brought, they spend 10 million on him to bring him in. They reinvest the money in getting better, equal or better players than what we had. When we sell somebody, we get 2 or 3 players who are quarter, half the ability. That's the problem. Then we try and build them up, and as soon as they get good, we sell them again. Like I agree. I think I'll be surprised if O'Brien's still here. I'll be surprised if Toffolo's still here, and I'll be surprised if Karoma's still here, because I can imagine there's a few suitors after him as well. And it seems as though as soon as we see it, we get a sniff of a few quid. Oh, get them sold. Yeah, we only bought them for a pittance, so we've made a big profit. We get them sold, and then we've got to try and get somebody of lower ability and build them up, and that's why we're not going anywhere. There's no progress.
We're the only club that presents us a big profit sale as a negative. Well, good news is we got a lot of money for him. Bad news is he stood me at nothing, so I've got to pay a massive VAT bill and a massive income tax bill. So actually, they're in 15 million quid. It's actually 2.7 million quid left over, and they're going to pay me that over the next 6 years. So all I've got to reinvest is 140 grand. Here's Dwayne Holmes, everybody.
If you look at our modern history, we've only ever twice brought in players in seasons. It was when Hoyle first full season of Lee Clark, or that half season before, when you brought in the likes of Pilkington, Rhodes, Peltier. They all made massive profits. We were losing quite a lot of money in League One, but they all made massive profits. We get to the Championship, we signed Clayton, Norwood, etc. Say what you like about Norwood, but we sold him for a profit. Sold Adam Clayton for a massive profit. Sold Butterfield for a massive profit. That was the model that we had. It's a model we should have kept following. It wasn't quite Brentford, but it works. Now what do we have? Academy lads, chuck them in, release them. It's I tell you, it kind of brings me on what I want to point out about the early start to next season, but what happens if 10 games, 12 games into next season, we are where we are, where we were, should I say, under Jan Sievert? Surely Carlos is going to get chucked out of the club. It's inevitable. And then, do you chuck out then Lee Bromby in the recruitment side of it and start again? We are at a big crossroads. We've been at a crossroads for a hell of a long time. But if we're in that same position in October, 5 months' time, where Town are in bottom three, cut adrift, we're going to see exactly what we saw 2 years ago. History repeating itself. And it is. You keep repeating the same mistakes. It is madness.
In some ways, it's a bit of a surprise that Carlos is still here, because Phil was pretty ruthless with the Cowleys last year. He decided he wanted to change it, and he changed it. And actually, the outcome at the end of this season, for me, is worse. But he's deciding that he's going to stick with this and not twist. As we sit here today recording, there's no changes, is there? And all of the mood music and all of the noise that's coming out of the club, Greg, is that nothing's changing at that level. That Phil thinks, as he said in his last update, that the football element, the football management element of the club and the football operation element is, quote, exceptional. So, it does seem like we on the outside are looking at a completely different scenario to those that are on the inside seem to be looking at.
Well, if he thinks that's exceptional, he must dine at McDonald's a lot.
It's look, I was thinking that, and I thought we were going to get rid of it this summer and restart next year to help season ticket sales. But I've had a bit of a rethink on it, and now we know the club's budget for players is going to be less this summer, right? So you can presume that next year is going to be a tough season regardless, yeah? Because we've got to still repay Dino's loans off over a long period of time, but that's still there. And the incomings aren't as high as they were pre-COVID and the Premier League seasons. And we're still not entirely sure how the season ticket sales are going to go this summer. I'd guess poorly, looking at the response of people online, but we don't know, right? I think we're in a Siewert situation here where the club thinks it's going to be a poor season next year again, right? Or they have worries that it will be poor. And look at it this way. You get rid of Carlos now. You get rid of Bromby now. We don't have much money to spend. It's still shit in October. Can you imagine the atmosphere of the fans around the club? You just imagine a new guy coming in and it's still being absolutely shite, right? Alternatively, think of it this way. Carlos gets till October. It's shit, right? At that point, it's shite. We then get rid of Carlos. We get rid of Devlin. We get rid of Bromby. It's a new start. For the rest of the season, fans will be a little bit kind of thinking, right, at least the restart's coming next summer. That's what I think. I think that's a consideration of that might have been taken. And that's why there has been no changes yet. because we're preempting that if it is shit next year, you can make a change and try and get everybody back on side instead of getting rid of them now, still having a small budget, not being able to bring in the best players that we want, bringing a manager who can't do too much with the squad that we've got regardless, and it being horrible from the off and the atmosphere being so terrible. This gives us options to make changes next season, whereas I think if you get rid of them now, we're stuck with the new guys, or again, extra turnover twice in a season. That's I really do think that might be why they are still here.
Bring back Aaron Moy. Is he playing in Shetland Islands or somewhere? Get him back.
China. He's had his two jobs.
Goals for fun, innit?
Get paid good money over there. Well, right. Let's all forget about being shit and being miserable, because we need to finish on a positive. And I'm going to finish on the love of my life, Christopher Schindler, who left us. There's a lot of mourning on Twitter. I decided to not put one at a generic post to get all the likes and retweets, which is some people's prerogative in life. The kind of first player that came in under David Wagner, which was a statement of where we were going at that time, and probably we'll never see a signing like that again. Certainly with the political implications of leaving the EU means we can't actually go out and sign German and Spanish and Italian players if we wanted to go down that route anymore. But also we won't spend £1.6 million on a centre back, I don't think, anymore. Probably the key player in a key season and help us achieve the dream that we did. It's sad to see him go, but in a kind of a weird way, I'm quite happy he has gone, because he's not going to stay on this sinking ship, Huddersfield Town. So I don't know about you guys, but it just felt like a bit of an end of an era, and now we can put that pin in that couple of years that we had with Wagner and those players who achieved it. I know Jonathan Hogg's still here, but he was also here, God, under the Chris Powell era. So he's kind of lived and breathed the rise and fall of Huddersfield Town. But that signing, more than most, certainly meant a lot to the club, and I think it showed us a statement of intent that I don't think we'll ever see for quite a long time, probably until we get a new owner.
Well, yeah, it does beg the question: who's going to be and when's going to be the next Christopher Schindler signing that we're going to have? I'm before that. I'm going back probably to the bringing in of Rhodes. That's how monumental he was. But yeah, it was the right time, really, and it was the worst kept secret. I think we all knew that the writing was on the wall and that he was going back. And I would have hated it for him to try and string out another season, and we're hanging on to it. Then it's better for all parties, and obviously he's got himself a decent move to a decent side in Nuremberg, and I'm sure we're keeping tabs on him very, very much so. And who knows, in 10 years' time, we seem to have a penchant for bringing back old town players, don't we? So it might be the last we see of Christopher Schindler around these parts. But no, it was the right call, and it begs the question who is going to replace him. But yeah, again, there aren't going to be any marquee signings, are there? And I'm trying to think what the best case scenario would be, and we've covered transfers extensively. But you're right, we're not going to be spending 7-figure sums on anywhere all over the pitch. Really, it's going to be lads who are out of contract or lads who are very, very young. And so no, that's what it boils down to. As for are we starting afresh? Well, it's dragged on for so long now. I feel like it's not even, because he's not been in the squad really for such a long time. It's not like we're drawing a line under it all. Really, his face hasn't been seen around the first team squad for a while. And the memory of the Wagner time is long gone, isn't it? It's a distant memory now. So going forward, whether it does happen to be the worst possible start, and we're facing big decisions about Carlos 10 games in like we were with Seaver, personally I think that's inevitable, to be quite honest, because I just don't. It hinges on the recruitment, and everything hinges on the recruitment, and that's the thing we are probably worst at. So in my mind, yeah, I do see that. Maybe Ian's right. Maybe the plan is that we have a massive reshuffle halfway through the season, and then we've got, okay, we'll get a firefighter in, and or we'll start building for the future, which is what we thought we were doing when we brought Carlos in. Maybe that is the best way. Maybe that's the best thing we can focus on at the moment. Pretty bleak, isn't it, to be honest? And so I'm just going to throw out there, FA Cup is still there for Championship sides, and I wanted it last year. I didn't get it. So Phil, if you are listening, please, this time, if we're going to come 24th, I at least want one more shot of the FA Cup before we have to play Woking again in the first round. So that's what we're going to go for, really. But no, he's the last big signing, proper monumental signing that made a real difference we're going to have for a long, long time.
I thought for a minute then, Cam, you were going to ask Phil if we could just get to the fourth round of the FA Cup for a change. I thought that's where you were going with that. Then.
I mean, that'll do as well.
Yeah.
Or just not lose to a side below us by a division.
Yeah, that's true. I'm just a quick one on Schindler for me, really. I think to quote Alfred Lord Tennyson's, better to have loved and lost than never to have loved at all. And that bloke was the ultimate symbol of the Wagner era for me. You're right, Greg, he was a signal of intent. He was, I know people called him a Rolls-Royce player on social media, and I think that's an excellent example. He was a Premier League ready player in waiting. Everything about him was of a quality. He led by example as a captain, wasn't a shouter, but he was an ultimate professional. He treated the club, the fans and his teammates with nothing but respect. And he set the standards, something that I witter on about constantly. He was a standard setter. So he'll be missed. My biggest disappointment is we didn't have chance to give him some kind of send off. That would have been really nice. If anybody deserved a send off, he did. But he's got a nice move. He's just come back to his home country. If anybody deserves playing close to home in the last few years of his career, it's that fella. He'll always be welcome back. He'll always get a pint, won't he? And hopefully at some point we'll get a chance to thank him and wish him well at some point during a game.
Well, the word legend's used too often, I think, when we're talking about players, but not in this case. What a player. A leader in a team of leaders, really. That promotion team was full of leaders, but he was one of the best leaders of them all. Calm, composed, cool customer, intelligent footballer, nice guy by all accounts as well, led by example. And when I first started following Town, my dream was to just have one shot in the Premier League. And just all the time that I was going with my dad when he was commentating, I was going along with him watching the games. I thought, I hope I'm able to watch him with my family in the Premier League. And he gave us that dream with that penalty at Wembley. And it's a moment I'll never forget. One of the best players. He embodies everything you want to see in a Town player. Incredible work ethic, wears his heart on his sleeve, model professional, gives everything for the team. And I just wish we had more players like him. And as a footballer, you move around a lot, and all you can ask really is that you leave the club and everyone's devastated that you've gone. And certainly, you look on Twitter and the outpouring of emotion for the guy, and he's certainly done that. So amazing player, and I'm gutted he's gone, but I agree. I think he's probably has gone at the right time. I hope that he does come back. I know the club said that hopefully they'll get him back when fans are back in the stadium and give him a bit of a send off. So I'd love to be there for that. But yeah, absolutely brilliant player, and wish him all the best for the future.
For me, he's the best signing we've ever made. He's not the best player we've ever had. That's Aaron Moy in my lifetime anyway. The best financial transfer we ever made was Jordan Rhodes for 125 grand, 250, whatever it was, and selling him for 8 million in old money. I know it's not that long ago, but transfers back then were a lot less than they were now. And 8 million at that point was massive, if you remember. But to me, he's the best signing we ever made. And now I've bet on Town twice in my life, right? The first one was when we lost to Barnsley in a playoff semi-final, because I wanted to just back myself up in case it went that way after we won the first leg. And the second time was after the Werder Bremen friendly, which is the first time I ever saw Schindler play. And now, if you remember the season before, the first half season with Wagner, the defense was pretty terrible. It was pretty awful. And Schindler straight away in his first game made us look so solid at the back. And considering the season we got promoted, we had the most single goals victory, I think, in Championship history at that point. I don't know if it still stands today. But that was on how solid our defence was. if anybody needed to do, he stood up and be counted and put a performance in and keep it calm. It was Christopher Schindler. He was fantastic, is fantastic. And I think he needs to get the Bellingham treatment. I think we need to get that number 26 retired. It's at least it's not 5 or 6, so we don't everyone knows it. We can do it on the quiet. Town fans will appreciate it. No one will complain. No one will really laugh at us because it's a higher number that we don't really use too much anyway. But he, for me, is the reason why we made the Premier League. Him and Aaron Moy. And to make the statement of going out and spending 1.7, I think we paid for him for a centre back, which was our transfer record at that point, of course, because before that was Stewart at 1.2, I think. Sorry, yeah, we 1.2 wasn't it when we bought Stewart. Anyway, we broke the record, and to spend that on a centre back is a massive statement of intent, and it really set the tone, I think, for how the season went on. It gave everyone a little bit of belief that we were going for it. He's just the best player. He's the best, most... People talk about Hogg being the engine for Town. He might shout a lot, but to me, when Schindler was playing, everybody played better. Hogg can disappear still in games. It can just be a little bit off. But with Schindler, it felt like you got 100% out of him every single time. And he was just a classy player. So let's get that number 26 retired, yeah.
Dangerously good looking as well, wasn't he?
Oh, how's no one mentioned that yet? He's the best. He was the best looking player, even above Lussel's standards. I think I had to console my girlfriend when I told her.
Honestly, man, he was he's been the poster boy. Let's not forget it. Housewife's favourite, great player, but Jesus, the women never stopped talking about him as well. So, but yeah, when he came from Munich 1860, they're he was an unknown quantity, really, wasn't he? Do you know what I mean? It's I remember saying to our kid, who's this lad, Christopher Schindler? And we soon found out who he was. Do you know what I mean? When he put that shirt on, just he stood so proud, such a, like you say, solid professional, and he will go down in legendary status. It isn't a word that should get bandied about as much as it does, but, you think of, Ian Dunn, you think of Boother, you think of all these names, Frank Worthington, and I'm not being too... He's in there. He is in there. Not just because he put that penalty away either. That was just a nice thing to do. Do you know what I mean? That he deserved to take that last penalty because of the season that he had prior to that penalty. So, a lot of people just focus on that penalty, but there was a lot more before that led to that. Do you know what I mean? So Christopher Schindler, I dared to be his critic towards the end of his time here because I think his form would drop him, but I think he's gone at the right time. 175 appearances, 5 goals, still dangerously good looking. Wish him all the best.
Made me question my sexuality more than once, mate.
We're back to you being nude again, Nick. Have we gone round in a big circle back to you being nude again?
That's coming from Mr. Reach Around over there. I thought it'd be you talking about that, guys, mate. You love chucking that one in there, don't you? He's going to be our David Carlin, isn't he? Do you like everyone jizzes over him, how amazing he was in the 80s? We're going to bore people shitless for years about how good Christopher Schindler was. And that penalty, we'll be showing him that penalty. Look at that. Look how cool he is. Captain, steps up. Is it a 448,000 billion game or whatever it is now, the playoff final? It goes up double every year, doesn't it? And he steps up and he takes it. For anyone, as soon as we saw him take that ball, as soon as he picked that ball up and, Schindler's taking it, you knew, didn't you? You absolutely knew. Keeper even went the right way, but the gods were good. And he just nestled in that bottom corner. And we had probably the best moment of our Town supporting lives, and probably the best it'll ever be. And you couldn't have had it done or given to us by a more beautiful man than Christopher Schindler.
And that's where we will finish. News of Nick's naked run will be coming on social media in the future. He said he'd do it for charity. So is that still the case? Or is it Mankini?
Whatever. I think, look, if I'm a man of my word. I said I was gonna do it. But if I am gonna do it, I think we'll do it properly. So I think, look, if anyone at the club's listening, I will do it. I said I'd do it. They've proved me wrong, but the club would have to support it because otherwise I get arrested. So
stay away from schools and recreational grounds.
It'd have to, yeah. Well, it could either do it round the ground in some sort of Mankini or something, or around the pitch. And I tell you what I'd do. If it was for charity and we got decent money for charity, I would do how many laps round the pitch, and then I'd do the last lap in front of the crowd if there's crowds back in with, a little thong on or something. How's that for you? But only if obviously the club need to support it. So
a little thong.
So basically,
money for charity.
So the club, if you're listening, for the Huddersfield Town Foundation, Nick Barlow will do a Gary Lineker around the stadium at a game next season.
This is the half-time entertainment we've been missing. Forget the Dizzy penalty. This is what I want to see more of.
You do.
If Christopher Schindler's doing it, especially, but
Just naked dizzy pen. That's what we're going for then, Nick. How about that? How about
not going to win Family Club of the Year, are we?
I wouldn't even need to bring a broom though if I was doing naked dizzy penalties, lads.
And on that note, enjoy your summers, everyone. Thank you very much for listening. Goodbye.